Well, hello, folks. Roger Green here from Feng Shui Seminars, New York School of Feng Shui, and the Academy of Sacred Geometry, and the Academy of Healing Nutrition. And I'm with some dear friends, Lydia and Arturo, and they're putting on an online Sacred Geometry conference in November 16th and 17th. And with the link below, you can get 55% off. Discount using the code Roger. So what we're going to do is go over the conference. It's a really exciting lineup of teachers, and we're covering a beautiful smorgasbord of topics that's all about your relationship to the environment. And some of these philosophies have been around for several thousands of years. For instance, Feng Shui, Vastu Sastra, sacred geometry, and of course, modern adaptation of all of this into modern eco-design, sustainable environments, you name it. We cover it all in this conference. So what we're going to do is go through some of the topics, some of the presenters, and we're going to get to know Lydia and Arturo a bit better. So guys, how did you first get into all of this?
Well, thanks for the invitation, Roger, and we really appreciate you and all your work. So yeah, we both have some interesting stories about how we got into this. For me personally, firstly, it started when I was really young, observing the temples here in Greece. I'm originally from Greece, so I grew up in a very abundant in temples environment, and I was always really surprised in the way they are constructed and the detail that they have. And I was always thinking there is so much more to these designs that we are told. And what about their location? Like, why did they pick here or there? And I had some very curious experiences there. When I was 18, I got inside the Parthenon, and I had this very special occasion because of our teacher of architecture history at school, at university. And so I really felt inside there that something was really different, and I couldn't explain it at that time. And a few years later, after finishing architecture, I had just moved into a new apartment, freshly built. That's a really important thing for people to know. And I thought that was a good thing. I was looking for that because I'm very sensitive. I have always been sensitive to anything in the environment, including built environments and people as well. So I didn't want a space that has already been used by other people to get that field over me, right? But what happened is that I didn't know at that time is that when I got inside this apartment, I started throughout a few months, I started to get really sick. And I didn't know why at that time, but slowly after time, I started getting into different trainings to find solutions and answers. And actually one of them was your training, Roger, with Feng Shui. And so just to give a small summary of that, I had all this off-gassing from the new materials that were there, like formaldehyde from the plywood. Everything was plywood in this apartment. There were, fresh paints. So this is full of VOCs, volatile organic compounds. These are all cancerogenic things. And then I figured out that where I was sleeping, I couldn't sleep in my bed after one whole year there. I ended up sleeping in the floor of my meditation room, and I could sleep better there than in my own bed. So I figured out two things. One was that I had metal springs in my bed, and my bed was over underground water, which, later I ended up doing a PhD on the location and how location affects us and how it's related to temples. I was measuring my body voltage. And of course, then I did all the Feng Shui analysis, and, there was a pretty bad combination in my bedroom. And so I started layer by layer healing these things and harmonizing and remedying every single thing and adding more harmonics. And of course, I started working on my inner world. I know you teach all this amazing healing nutrition, and I love all the 5-element theory and the Chinese medicine. I've worked a lot on myself through that process, and it has helped me immensely. So eventually, what I'm trying to transmit here is that a space is a series of different things, from the shapes, the geometry, the color, the EMF, the location, and many other things that when we want to create a harmonic space and a healthy space so we can, we can be well, we can thrive, we need to take care of all of that and bring them all into coherence.
Wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Roger, for all the work you've been doing. And that's how, I mean, that's part of the story of Lydia, but then eventually we met, and then we created Geophilia, and we decided to continue. We did many years ago the first International Congress of Sacred Geometry and Biological Architecture. And now we wanted to expand it to the, to this third online Congress. The first one was, like physical. And this third one is we gather together like the best people on the planet to talk about sacred geometry, health, well-being, and how literally our health is directly impacted through the coherence of the space, the harmonics of the space. So of course we have a lot of science. We have, like biogeometry, like we really have like amazing speakers. And my story was more related to sacred geometry, not so much temples. I'm from Mexico. Of course, we have thousands of pyramids there, and I like them, aesthetically speaking, but it has not been my passion. Now, Lydia's passion has triggered my passion to research about temples and all these ancient civilizations. But my passion has been more, how can we measure that? How can we measure the effects of spaces upon us? Like, what's the relation? How really affect geometric shapes over our health? How electromagnetic fields or gravitational fields, like these invisible fields, how they really affect us. In what proportion? Because we are all, more than 50% of population in the planet live in cities. Like we really live in cities. 50% or a little bit less live outside of the cities, but that number will keep increasing. Like we will end up living in big major cities eventually. So for those that have the opportunity and the blessing to live off-grid, or like to live in this type of lifestyle, to be off-grid, fully sacred geometry houses, etc., that's a blessing. But the vast majority of people know. So we came up with, okay, what practical solutions we can give to people so they can, wherever they're living, if they cannot change their house or their apartment, what can they do? What can they do to increase the space harmonic of the place that they're already in? Like we received so many emails of people saying, I cannot sleep. Like I am in my bed and I cannot sleep. I, have all these disorders. And sometimes has to do with these anomalies, with these, what Lydia was explaining.
Yeah. And so you also know Roger a long time, like what about that? And what about Dan Winter, and how did we meet? Like it's a whole family. It's just
a big
family.
We all put on bioarchitect. We got bioarchitect onto the planet, and presented, these ancient philosophies with, modern scientific endeavor, things like charge collapse and implosion and frequencies and resonances. And it's a, beautiful, fertile philosophy now, because we're in an age that we can blend the spiritual and the scientific. So it's very, very
exactly
dynamic. And this conference is going to sort of lend itself to people learning these practical solutions, as well as getting to know the bigger picture, like, what is sacred geometry? What is eco-design? What are some of the materials? How do we measure these materials? How do you know they're healthy? Before we get into some of the presenters, because I'd like to hear, because you know them all personally, but just maybe just a few little definitions for folks. In your opinion, how would you describe and define sacred geometry, and how do you use it in your work as designers?
Well, sacred geometry can be also named like fractal geometry or natural geometry, which is like, you take out this part. Sometimes people associate sacred to a religion or, to a temple. But sacred is a bigger concept. So the bigger concept is fractal geometry. So what we have been doing is applying this concept of fractal geometry. Fractal is any geometry that is repeated, like the big picture or the big image of the geometry is repeated in every element. So that's a fractal. So you can find fractals everywhere in nature. It's like nowadays you find everywhere in the internet fractals. So this concept of fractality, it is said that the more fractal a design, the more coherence it can have. So you can actually see that very easily demonstrated in cymatics. The higher the pitch of any note, the more complex the geometry of that pitch. Cymatics is a technique where you put a sound and it will be transformed into a geometry. So the lower the pitch, the more basic the geometry. So imagine that we do the opposite. We take, instead of sound transformed into geometry, we take geometries and we apply, let's say, transformed into a sound. So we apply this concept of fractal geometry that it's pretty complex, like it can be very simple or it can be really complex, but the main idea of fractal geometry is how you can imitate the patterns of nature into architecture or into buildings, and then you can reproduce the same energy, that electromagnetic energy that nature produces inside the building. So in simple terms is we live in a planet that has a heartbeat, and this heartbeat is called Schumann resonance, and it has a cascade of frequencies from very, very low to medium frequencies. So how can you have this heartbeat, this cascade of frequencies that are not stopped or are not blocked inside your house or inside your building, that they keep, like reproducing this vibration inside your building? Because usually what happens in the building that we live is that we live in Faraday cages, which is kind of in a box that isolates us from the rest of the electromagnetic field. So imagine you're like in a bubble of electromagnetic coherent fields, and then you're in your house and you're fully isolated of these natural fields. That's why, of course, we always look for nature to rejuvenate and to, recharge our batteries. Right. But what if the places that we are designing and we're building and we're, living our daily life are a fractal antenna, or like a resonator of these frequencies, natural frequencies of the earth, so we're not isolated from them. That's the whole idea, the whole concept. And we've been doing many projects, some of them are built, some of them are in process of building for more than 20 years in different parts of the world. And we're actually very happy because we have been seeing that many architects all around the world, naturally, like kind of a harmonic resonance or morphic resonance, they have been incorporating more and more fractal geometry. Like suddenly we have seen that many architects, it's like a fashion, but a very uplifting fashion for us, that they are going into that direction. And so we decided to keep opening the paradigm, and the consciousness to go there, because if we are already building so many houses and so many buildings, why not do it in a more healthy way?
Exactly. So, and the beauty of all of this, of course, is in the principles of nature, these harmonics, that we talk about in sacred geometry, completely in nature. And of course, Feng Shui is the same language, different terminology, right? Exactly the same, direction as sacred geometry. And of course, I've always been pushing the technologies that you can do with sacred geometry as well. So not only is it, a beautiful art form, a beautiful design principle, beautiful philosophical principle to embrace in your personal development, right? And to be able to observe nature and all these forces around you a lot better. But also, the idea of using sacred geometry into implosion technologies, and some of your presenters, Dan Winter, Paul Harris, will be presenting these ideas. These days, you know, sacred geometry studies really, really well the torus, and that becomes the plasmoids, and that's what's happening in cold fusion and the thunderstorm generator and biofeedback and the Theraphi device. It's all part of the same guidelines, principles of nature that we're celebrating in this conference. Tell us about some of the presenters that you've got lined up here.
Yeah, so we really have handpicked the presenters, and we're trying to get all the different aspects of the, like, what can help us have a more harmonic space and wellness in terms of our built spaces. And so we have some really interesting presentations. One of them, of course, is Dan Winter, and we're discussing exactly the implosion dynamics, especially when it has to do with buildings. We discuss different geometries. We discuss unified physics and their connection, you know, to architecture, like, for example, sacred dimensions, how they relate to Planck. Planck being, you know, a very small unit of light, actually the cutoff value that we can measure in our reality. So we had a really amazing conversation and in-depth analysis of how that ties in with architecture. There are so many different aspects that tie in with architecture that people think, oh, how do unified physics blend with architecture? But it's the same thing, the same way we have different other things from geometry, like biogeometry, for example. So we have Doreya Karim, who is the daughter of Ibrahim Karim, who I've done both levels of the training. Mm-hmm. And we also integrate in our work, which is another very interesting system of ancient knowledge from French and Egyptian lineages, and then he integrated, and he had new findings, like he calls biosignatures and all, and he brought all that knowledge to us. So we had, again, with Doreya, a very interesting, in-depth journey, talking about what is the centering principle, how, you know, things can be applied in our spaces with biogeometry to improve the harmonics based on all this amazing ancient wisdom. We also have Dr. Korotkov, of course, who is such a pioneer. I mean, we know him so many years. I got first to meet him a long time ago when I was presenting in a scientific conference all about temples and their technology. And so we had a really good bond there. And he always was very supportive of my temple research. Of course, he has this amazing device that he invented, which is the BioWell. And we use that also to measure the energy of spaces. And he's going to be showing specifically in his presentation all about how to measure the energy of pyramids. So he's showing in depth, you know, how the energetics of pyramids are in different places in the world, how people were affected, you know, before and after going inside pyramids. And so it's like really fascinating to see all these results.
Yes, I met him many decades ago in the UK. And the great thing about the BioWell is it gives you this before and after. You can do the BioWell and then make changes in your house and your feng shui and change things around, and then do the BioWell again, and you can see how the energetics of your subtle energy fields have changed. You know, it's amazing technology.
Absolutely, just ingenious technology.
Yeah, we have many other speakers like David Wolf, that he has so many decades of experience about how to create and apply permaculture principles, and how to take your farming and your garden to next level, how to really make it produce, you know.
Yeah, he has been also a very important mentor in my life, and I have learned so much from him. But something that he has been really working on many years, for example, he started using special structuring of water when it was not even out in the market, you know. So he knows Dan Winter, long time, and he was using the imploder, and he's doing like magnets and structuring his water.
I sent the imploder to him about 15 years ago, so he put it into his farm in Hawaii and started to do results with it.
Yeah, but he really works in a very different way with his, like, like his gardens and all that. So he never uses like the organic principles. What he does is biodynamics and electroculture, which is really next level. So he's explaining his presentation, you know, how to get into the next level of having really high quality food for yourself, and how to work more kind of in flow with the plants rather than, you know, pushing specific things on the plants. So we have to listen more in that aspect. And I just found very interesting the way he shared all that in the conversation we had. And it's a very different way, I would say, a more yin or feminine way of approach, rather than, you know, I will force things, I will spray things, I will do, you know what?
We've given the plant kingdom a hard time. We've said, you got to work hard, you got to, you know, like, yeah.
Exactly. We also have Veda Austin, who's of course a pioneer with her work on crystallography in water. So we are discussing, you know, things about structuring water, how different quality of water can affect our body, how water can affect our intracellular water, and so we can have better health. And of course, we are also sharing some different devices and things we can use, what we use also to structure our water and to have better quality water. So that went deep into all the water technology, which is really amazing. We also have John and Rebecca Bush, who are the creators of Exit and Build movement and co-creators of the Greater Reset. So we have been in their event a few years now, and we have been presenting. And this conversation, as well as with Derek and Miriam, which is another presentation. Both of those couples, they are the co-creators of the Freedom Cell Network. So it's all about, you know, conscious communities, living off-grid, or how to create a community from scratch. These people also have visited different communities around the world, and we're talking about things that don't work, what things to focus on, you know, for people that are new and they really are longing for that community. And so these were really deep conversations as well.
Yeah, and also to Feng Ben, that he's so passionate about Islamic geometry and fractal geometry. He has, you know, like many, he has a deep understanding of geometry and sacred geometry, and how the ancients, how they were applying it. And then now through Planck, through this very, very, very small scale, he has some geometric tools and very interesting things that he has been discovering through phi ratio, because phi ratio is one of the most important ratios that nature uses to create everything. Every single design is based in nature in phi ratio 1.618.
Yeah, so he shares in his presentation how Islamic geometry actually ties in with science, you know, with unified physics and all that, which is fascinating. And both me and Arturo, we really love the Islamic geometry. We have been studying it, and it's really, wow, for us, it's just really deep way to express geometry on a built space. Of course, we have Paul Harris, as you mentioned before, who is also a very good friend, and he's just a genius creator of these amazing spiritual technology devices. And what I mean by that is how to infuse, you know, the unified physics, the sacred geometry, and all these different parameters in a modern technology that really gets our health and wellness to the next level. And so that ties in, you know, sacred geometry technologies, basically. And we are diving deep into that, different devices that blend plasma and sound and different things that we also love and use. So we're going to go very deep with that. And then we also have Odin Rus, who is a Mexican expert on permaculture. And so we are also working with him on different projects. And so, yeah, he's going deep into the basics of permaculture for people that are beginners, you know, because permaculture also applies, of course, in a space or on the way you design, you know, with different plants, on how you tie in animals and plants. but also it really applies even in a master plan. And of course, in the way we design, we use Feng Shui and sacred geometry, but we also use permaculture principles in a master plan. And all of those we think are really important when you want to really create like a holistic master plan, where, you know, the entire project is conceived in the most harmonic way. So there are areas, you know, as I like to say, there is a head, there is a heart, there is legs, you know, and there is like a harmonic being rather than just adding things here and there without any thought whatsoever. And also we are going to share 3 different presentations in this conference. And so the first one is all about how to, let's say, biohack our space. And we will talk about different technologies and things we use to counteract EMF, to create more harmonics in the space. You know, all the practical tools and techniques that we really use in our daily life. We also have another presentation which has to do specifically about building materials, because many people ask us about that, like, okay, what do I choose? What are the differences between building materials, and what do you recommend? And of course, the pros and the cons, because what people don't understand is that there is no one material that is best for everything. Depends on your budget, depends on the function of the building. You know, like if we're doing, for example, a food processing facility, you know, there are restrictions by law. So you have to take into consideration all the practical things or the legal things, the energy things, and the health and wellness things. So you have, and also your budget, right? Sorry?
It's a dance, it's a juggling act for sure, yeah.
Absolutely. And then we have also another presentation, which is the science and spirituality of conscious architecture. So we're going to talk all about like
unified physics.
Yeah, unified physics, health, and how all that ties in to create like a really harmonic space. So we're going to explain and like just give on all the downloads on that.
Yeah, it's 16 hours. It's Saturday 8 hours, Sunday 8 hours with Q&A live.
16th and 17th of November. And it's
and of course
Central Time, yeah, at 10 a.m. Is that right?
Central US time, yes, from like 10 to 6. But of course, you know, we have you as a speaker. I'm sure you will share more.
Wow, that crazy guy Roger Green, boy.
Yeah, so you know, we talk all about Feng Shui and all these amazing things that you teach.
Yeah, I'll give an introduction to Feng Shui and sort of introduce how people can recognize the yin and yang of their home straight away. And, you know, the grounding and what we call the form school, the basics of Feng Shui that you use all the time in design and in consultations, you know, just kind of getting the flow happening, you know, just recognizing the 5 elements, the directions. Obviously, Feng Shui is quite a sophisticated art and design form. We have the form school and the compass school. So one's dealing with the gross visible world, which is, you know, very, very important. Then we have these beautiful tools to sort of measure and map the world of Qi, the invisible world, like the flying star, Minghua, 4 pillars, etc. So they are more sophisticated techniques and take, you know, kind of like a year training to get to know. But in what I'm presenting is, you know, the fundamentals, and maybe just sort of simplifying it for people. There's a lot of books out there and it kind of can quickly get complicated, but you can start to use your own kind of Feng Shui sense very, very quickly. You know, people are very intuitive about it anyway. So, and, you know, just reminding people about some of the fundamentals of their own, you know, which even my very spiritually advanced people forget. So, yeah, it's going to be fun, guys. A lot of fun. Good on you for bringing this very interesting, dynamic bunch of presenters, teachers. And it's a, you know, exciting subject. You know, you've put together a really good program. So, any final words?
Well, welcome to everyone. Like, we're very happy to see you there. You will have access to recordings, of course. And if you're already advanced on these subjects, you always have other point of view. And if you're very, very basic and you're like a beginner, okay, where do I begin? Where do I start? It's a good starting point to open, you know, like broad spectrum. Okay, I can go here, I can go there, I can, you know, it's like really broad spectrum. What I could say that it's our strongest point, you know, like as geophilia, is to give a synthesis. We have walked so many paths that usually they contradict, you know, like you read one book and says, I don't know, whatever thing is very, very good. And you read another book and says the same thing is really, really bad. So at some point, it can be full of contradictions. So what you will get, one of the biggest things that the value that we have brought since many years is this synthesis. Okay, the contradiction can be solved in this way, and this is a unified vision of how we have been applying it and what are the practical results.
Yeah, for me, it's like a subject that really touches me. And because I have also been through a lot, I'm really passionate about helping people, you know, having a very harmonic space. Either you like are very sensitive to it or not, you know, spaces influence us all. You know, either you are aware of it or not. And for all of us in the long term, there will be some sort of effect, you know, in the future. For some people, it starts in a few months. Some people, it can take 1 or 2 years or whatever, but you don't have to get there. And it's as important, and what we teach with Arturo, which is called life harmonics, is bringing your internal space and your external space environment into coherence. So doing all the inner work, you know, taking the best food you can, you know, you teach also the healing nutrition and all that, working on your emotional world, your intellectual world, and all these different 5 levels that we have, and then also making sure that all these 5 levels that exist in the external environment, they are also in the most coherent level possible. And from there, it's like how we can bring harmony in our lives by bringing these 2 into coherence. So I'm very passionate about that. I would love that everybody has a very harmonic environment where they can thrive. So I hope I will see you there.
Fantastic. You guys are doing wonderful, wonderful work. A privilege to have you as my friends. Okay, guys, so if you're watching this, there's a link down below that takes you to the website. You can read up on the presenters, and also there's a code there, Roger, that will get you half price, basically. So, and also just remember that if you can't make those dates, if you sign up, you will get the recordings. But if you are watching this live on the 16th and the 17th, you do get a chance to ask. There's about 10-15 minutes designated after the presentation for questions. So you do get a chance to, you know, ask questions and interrelate with, you know, the teachers, practitioners, and Arturo and Lydia. So sign up, be there or be square. So I'll be seeing you in November, guys. Good catching up.
Thank you, Roger. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.